Organisations have to start thinking about the type of data that they're going to store. There's been a kind of a tradition of let's capture as much data as we can because one day it might be useful to us. So organisations have to be very smart about deciding what it is they want to collect, how they're going to use it, and also demonstrating that it's frankly relevant to the customer and it's going to provide a better service to the customer as a result.
So Simon, I get that obviously with technology now, there's fantastic technology in the marketplace, but how do we get CIOs to actually articulate the business value and sort of drive the value chain within their organisation to make these projects worthwhile?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, demonstrating an ROI is always one of the most difficult challenges. Thankfully, we and the technology partners that we work with, have a wealth of data that we can help CIOs show what the ROI is going to be. For instance, tools that will let them say, know how much of their meeting room space is being booked. So therefore, can they reduce their real estate? How much of their hot desk space is actually being used? Can they repurpose their office, maybe increase meeting room space, or even hive off a floor completely and sublet it to some other company? So we've got all the tools that can help them do that.
We're seeing that a lot with a lot of our clients actually, that they're starting to reduce their estates, they're starting to have more versatile meeting spaces, more digital environments rather than a workplace. On the war with talent and actually attracting new talent to your organisation, have you seen a real shift in the understanding and the role of a CIO?
I think I have, yes, because a lot of the talent that they're trying to attract these days has come straight out of university, and they've grown up in an age where the iPad has existed. They've had better technology at home and at university than typically most offices have at the moment. So CIOs are recognising that if they want to attract the top talent, they need to give the employees the tools that they're used to and the environment they're used to working in. It doesn't help if you come for an interview somewhere, for instance, and you've been working on 4G or Wi-Fi in a coffee shop. You get to the place you're going to go for an interview and suddenly you can't get on the Wi-Fi. It doesn't leave a great impression. So they need to deploy the tools that the kids are used to if they want to attract the top talent.
And do you think that's a big decision for those individuals? That plays a big part in them choosing an organisation?
Do you know what? I was surprised quite how big a part of their decision it actually is, because I've grown up in an era before that. But seeing how they interact with technology, all you have to do is look at the people on the trains and the young people on the trains and around the streets around here to see how many people are constantly engaged with their smartphones. It's how they consume data.
Yeah.
So anything that prevents them from using that in the manner that they become accustomed to is an inhibitor.
Do you think the individuals, these young people coming into these organisations, do you think they're security conscious? Do you think they understand their role in keeping their organisation secure in those types of environments, on trains, in other people's workspaces?
Honestly, no, not particularly. We bombard them with information about making sure they change their passwords and being secure, but we were all young once and we don't appreciate sometimes the repercussions of our actions until years later. It's something you learn with age and experience. I think that's where you see this balance between giving the young recruits to an organisation the tools they need to do their job properly, and also having a security regime that doesn't get in the way of that but keeps the organisation safe. And we've got a number of tools that can help CIOs and organisations do that.
Well, like I say, you must see that as a really big challenge for the CIO, balancing that, making people versatile and helping support them in their day-to-day endeavours, as well as then continuing to make sure they manage risk within their own organisation. How do you see that panning out in the next 18 to 24 months?
Well, this is one of the areas where there's the biggest rate of change. There's new attacks every day, thousands of new attacks every single day. And unfortunately, the people developing these attacks always seem to be a little bit smarter than the people developing the tools to protect against that attack. It's a bit like developing a vaccine for a disease. You only know you need to develop the vaccine when you see the disease. Unfortunately, with IT, everything happens very, very quickly. So potentially, if there's a new exploit that steals your data, even fixing it a couple of days later can be too late. That's why we've started to rely on machine learning technologies to kind of identify patterns of threats, so that we can increase, say, a risk profile ahead of there actually being an exploit, and maybe look at things a little more closely before things go wrong.
Is there any specifics or bits of advice that you personally would have on helping CIOs to make that change or to balance the two?
You're right, and that goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, which is the budget cycle. With new security exploits, new threats come in every single day. How does an organisation deploy tools to fix that when their budget cycle means they maybe don't have a big budget spend available for the next 2 or 3 years? Yeah. Thankfully, we've got some tools that will enable customers to essentially put a figure on the value of how protecting the organisation. You know, maybe it's not a case of you can't find the money to do it, but what if you don't find the money to do it? What could the repercussions be? Especially with things like GDPR coming along, it's going to be a big area of challenge.
How big a challenge do you actually see that being? There's lots of different views in the market. Some are saying it's a really big problem that's going to be coming at our clients very, very quickly, and others are saying that actually it's just a bit of noise and something that will be, you know, sorted out pretty easily. What's your view?
Yeah, you're right. There are certainly some organisations that are kind of going into ostrich mode, which is, you know, it doesn't affect us, we won't worry about it. The reality of GDPR is that most of this legislation has been in place for a long, long time. What changes is the enforcement and the penalties associated with, you know, breaking the rules. I think organisations have to start thinking about the type of data that they're going to store. You know, there's been a kind of a tradition of let's capture as much data as we can because one day it might be useful to us, and let's justify the fact that we're capturing that information by having someone accept some terms and conditions, which frankly most people never read. You know, the legislation now says that it's got to be very obvious what you're going to collect, how you're going to use it, and also you can't just hide kind of a checkbox in some terms and conditions. It has to be set out separately. So organisations are going to have to be very smart about deciding what it is they want to collect, how they're going to use it, and also demonstrating that it's frankly relevant to the customer and it's going to provide a better service to the customer as a result.
Do you see a lot of those experiences that you've seen in the retail sector coming into the generalist business environment, into financial services, into professional services, to allow sort of content to be shared, to provide a better experience for our staff and our people?
Very much so. I mean, retail was the first to adopt analytics. You know, they wanted to know what the footfall was within a shopping mall. They wanted to know how long you stood outside a McDonald's and whether you went in or not. These same technologies are very valuable to organisations. I mean, particularly, let's look at education and universities. You know, understanding how people move around the campus is extremely valuable. You know, knowing where the facilities should be put, like common facilities such as toilets and refectories and things like that. And also, in the event of emergencies, knowing how many people are on campus at any one time and where to direct them away from danger can be very, very important. And again, we can see those same tools being adopted in a corporate environment. You know, knowing that there is a fire or some other threat and you need to evacuate the building, well, knowing how many people are there and directing them to the correct exit away from the danger is a very important thing.